Welcome to Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. In this podcast, we delve into the non-clinical aspects of dentistry with inspirational guests from across the profession. You will hear incredible life stories, pick up valuable business tips and be entertained. I'm Andy Acton and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Drevens. So Claire Frisby, what an interesting lady, and she's a real burst of energy and passion, isn't she?
She is. It was lovely, actually. I mean, I've seen her and spoken to her, inverted commas, via, LinkedIn and stuff like that. But to actually have a conversation with her and feel that vibe, and obviously she is in Lanzarote, so she does have the benefit
Which does
of quite a
help.
nice bit of warmth going on.
But also that way that she, we talk about people kind of pivoting and re-engineering things as a result of COVID, but the way she re-engineered her business, her life, her services, everything, to get her life in a shape that suits her. And I think a lot of people outside of the business of dentistry could look at that as a real positive way, that just because you do things one way doesn't mean you always have to do them that way.
Yeah, and also to recognise that she wanted to change and to change something, as opposed to, I mean, how many people do we see who basically want to change or moan about something but don't actually ever change? Whereas she did something.
Yeah, no, a great advocate for change. Now, really interesting. I'm sure people will take a bundle from that, and some of her tips around social media as well.
Social media is not as easy as you think, I think, would be what maybe the headline of that. Something.
Yeah.
It needs a bit more thought. That's
right, yeah. No, it was a really good one, So, welcome everybody. This is to our latest episode of Dentology. How are you doing, Chris?
Very good, very good. This is quite an unusual one, this, isn't it? Because even though we try not to date this is because of the weather. We are doing it from two different venues. And those of you who might have seen us, you'll notice I'm not wearing glasses. So I'm the same person. It's just I don't need them when I'm sitting at home because my screen is really close. It's good. It's good. I'm delighted for someone who's looking regrettably with a suntan in the sun.
Exactly. So that's not like us. I live in London, so I'm snowed in at the moment, but that's all fine. We're going to have a good chat. So we're very fortunate today. Today we're joined by Claire Frisby. Claire Frisby is a social media manager, TCO trainer and mentor, dental nurse assessment writing for the NCFE, editor with the Dental Nursing Journal, and been in dentistry for over 30 years. I find that hard to believe, Claire. Welcome, Claire. How are you doing?
Unbelievable.
Thank you for having me. No, that's great. I'm good, thank you. I'm glad I'm not in the UK. It's snowed in.
Yeah,
we are.
It's very, very festive, though. It's very Christmassy.
It is.
See, I used to love it when it was a snow day, but I didn't very often get out of work very often because I had my boss used to have a Land Rover and he lived up the road, so he used to come and get me.
No excuses. Exactly.
I know, but it was just my last excuse.
Well, you're looking very sun-kissed at the moment. I'm sure everybody's very jealous.
Yep.
It's about 25 today. Not rubbing it in at all.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to remain tactfully silent and sip my hot drink.
So to kick off,
still
Claire,
like a cup of tea.
Yeah. To give us some context, Claire, and to kick off, what do we need to know about your early years, your childhood? What are the things that kind of shaped you as a young person that gives us an insight to the success you've had today?
Well, my family life was quite normal. I went to a girls' school. I don't know if that made any difference whatsoever, but no annoying boys at the time. I was never a studier. I was a more practical type of person. I liked the sports and the arty type things. Never, I got bored of reading. I got bored of revising, and I used to just sort of wing it, really. I got the grades I needed and wanted, but I was never a sit down study type person.
Did you do?
And I went to go to college afterwards, and I was going to do photography and psychology actually. And I got to the course and did the first couple of psychology classes. And then the photography one was cancelled because they didn't have enough people. So that one went all pear-shaped. I don't know why. It was just the way it went. I did graphic design at school as well, right the way through. And I was always very arty and creative. And I love to paint. So I do watercolours. So I've always had that arty, practical streak in me.
Right. And do you still paint, Claire?
Yes, funny enough, I did one. I put it in a frame the other day. You might think I'm a bit mad if you see it, though. It's very abstract.
I was going to say, are you like a real, whatever it is, I don't know, what's it called, real life? It's not called real life, it's still life.
No, mine's whatever comes out on the paper.
Oh, right. You're sort of like,
Yeah.
interesting.
I've always been like that. I used to think when I was younger, I would be able to paint record covers. I used to think that was what I would wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
There's
probably people listening to this that have no concept of what a record cover is. They're like, a record? What's that? I'm not entirely sure, but a bit of vinyl, an LP. That was a day, wasn't it?
Making a comeback, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
They are.
It's interesting. So that's your creative streak then that carries through to when we talk about where you are now. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Really, that at an early age,
I think what happened. Yes, I think what happened is, I don't know if you've seen the film Sliding Doors.
Yeah.
I always believe in fate takes you to where you're supposed to be. And I ended up, obviously the photography was cancelled, so I didn't end up doing the psychology. And then I did printing, I did jewellery making, different things, and then ended up in dental nursing because someone said, why don't you try that? It's practical. You're not sitting at a desk. You're not sitting at a computer. So I thought, okay. And I loved it. Absolutely. Day one, there was extraction. I wanted to be in there. And then, so as the years went on, I ended up getting involved in taking the photographs in the practice, taking the, and I loved talking to patients with the psychology. You learn how to deal with patients, don't you? Like their moods, responding, communication. So the way I see it is I've done a completely different route to end up doing what I still want to do but in a completely different way than I thought it was going to happen.
And how old were you when you started nursing?
19.
Oh, wow.
So he's working it out now. I've got a big birthday next year.
No, all I was thinking was at those times with dentists then, they weren't wonderfully great communicators. I mean, there's still issues in the fact they're not wonderful. Most of them aren't very good communicators now, sometimes with patients. And I was just thinking, did they sort of almost say, right, well, over to you, Claire. You can have a chat.
This is the thing, isn't it? They don't always like the dental nurse talking. They were the dentist, and there was obviously a stigma with dental. There still is a little bit. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But you didn't. If you butted in a private practice, it wasn't really the thing to do. But obviously, as I got older and wiser, I used to do it anyway.
What I love the idea. What I love though
because the patient turns to you and.
Sorry, go on, Claire.
Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, what I love is that you're obviously passionate about something.
I ended up taking.
Because you're passionate about something, you find a way to fit that in. So you're obviously very creative, and when you got into a dental practice, you were able to shoehorn your creativity into that environment.
Yes.
And it's funny, like Chris said, now the work that you do is still highly creative. So when people find something they really enjoy, it's amazing how they'll find a way to carve that into their life somehow, not necessarily in the most obvious of roles or in the obvious sectors, but it still features.
Yeah. And now I'm designing creation for dental practices, which was probably, what I would have been doing in a different route. It's just, I just think it's amazing. Like you say, I've got here, and now it's obviously focused on dentistry, which I never thought would happen. And the 30 years of dental experience is helping with what I do now. It's all come into a big. It's all taken shape, especially over the last year.
Right.
Well, I think what's interesting, isn't it, that Andy and I have spoken about that in reality, people are the same. They respond in the same way. So whether it was 30 years ago, 300 years ago, 3 months ago, our brains are all wired to react to things in a certain way. So what you learn 30 years ago and have been developing since then is as applicable now as it was then. It's just maybe the techniques and what you deliver is different. It's fascinating, really.
Yeah, it definitely is. I agree.
And have you noticed a change? I mean, from obviously with your training and what you do with people and your social media, how's that sort of work?
There's a big change. Obviously, there's a lot more do's and don'ts than what there was years ago. Even when it comes to I used to train all the dental nurses, even practice managers and treatment coordinators in the practice. And people have changed. There's a whole big change on how you speak to people, I think. Whereas, I mean, they used to call me matron, so I was very direct. But if I was like I was years ago in the practice now, they'd all run off crying probably, and I'd probably be held up into HR. Not that I was horrible, but I was very direct in how I spoke. I've always been a bit like that. So I've had to calm it all down and assess the situation before reacting, if that makes sense. Does that make sense with what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it does, and I find it fascinating that you spotted that as a change in and I think it's a real, for you, it's great self-awareness that you haven't just continued to be as you were. You've looked at the environment of where we are now and made sure you adjust how you communicate with people, because I think you're right. I think there is a difference in how we need to communicate with people these days.
Definitely. You just have to be very careful how you word things. Mm-hmm. And that's patients, your team members, your boss, anyone really.
It's a bit like football managers, isn't it? I remember them saying that, Alex Ferguson used to give the guys that sort of the hairdryer treatment, which was basically, shout at them. Whereas they were saying that nowadays the young footballers just won't get it. They just won't tolerate it or don't really like it because they're sort of different people, which is exactly what you're saying. It's amazing how we've evolved. So we won't comment on whether that's good or bad.
No. We'll just say it's a change.
I'm still old school. That's what it is. I think it's a change. Yeah, I think we all manage it.
So you've moved your business out to Lanzarote now, which is where you live. So did you set your business up to be able to work remotely before you went to Lanzarote, or was that part of that transition?
Or did you retire?
Basically, no. I'd planned for a long time that I wanted to come out here, and then obviously I got into the social media side in the practice. I'd already been helping on bits and pieces in their websites, and I was always the one, as I said earlier, go around taking the photos, saying this would be great, put this on, this is what people want to see. And again, that arty aspect came into it. I'd be able to see what a good photo would look like. And then I said to him, look, just let me do the social media. And then I ended up doing the social media for about the last 6, 7, probably longer now, because probably 8 years maybe. I've always been on Instagram probably from the start. So I think I looked the other day and it said I'd been on there 13 years. And I don't even realise it had been there that long. But so I've always enjoyed it. And I think where the social media comes in now, so I've lost my train of thought, sorry.
That's all right. One of the things I was going to ask, have you noticed in that time that the social media trends, I'm not very good on social media, so I don't really know much about what's going on, but have you sort of had to adapt in the way that things have changed over that period of time? Because that to me, that seems a massive long time for social media to evolve and what's available. And I mean, have you noticed big changes there?
Yes. First of all, it's just putting a picture on. We just put photos on. When I look back now, even to about 4 years ago, I think I wouldn't put that on. I just wouldn't do it like that now. I think there's so many. Everyone's been learning, and I think especially through COVID, that's where everyone was at home and it really exploded. Going back to your question now, I've just remembered, Andy, what we were talking about. I was at the point at work before COVID that I was exhausted. I'd got to the point, I think everyone was it'd gone a bit mad at work, and I'm older, so I couldn't, I have to admit it. I couldn't do what I used to do, and I used to come home on a Friday and be absolutely exhausted. And I knew in my head that I wanted to come and live out here. Again, I was pushed into it because Brexit was coming, COVID happened, so it was a case of do it now or I'm not going to. And I didn't have any plans. All I knew is that COVID had let me carry on doing social media for everyone remotely during, because we were all at home, and it showed the people I was working with that it could be done remotely. So for me, that had a big effect on how I ended up now. And I think a lot of people have found that out, that I think it brought remote working into its own, didn't it? For good or bad reasons. It showed it actually worked. So for me, it was a bonus that I could still do that at home. And then I managed to get out here just before and get residency just before Brexit. After that, I didn't want to do anything. I thought, right, I'm not having anything to do with dental, anything ever again. That's it. I'm done. I was exhausted. I needed a break. And then I got to about 3 months later and I thought, I was still doing the social media for the practices that I was doing. And then I thought, I need to come back onto it. So I put all my followers back onto my Instagram again, started networking, and then it all started from there. It was the networking, LinkedIn, Instagram, not so much Facebook. I didn't do a lot on Facebook because that's not my favourite. But definitely LinkedIn was the key for me.
Wow. Did you have the house there already, or did you have to buy one?
I do long-term rental just in case I want to find out where I want to be, because you move to another country, you don't know how it's going to work out. So I didn't want to commit myself to a house and have all that stress as well. At that time, I just wanted to settle down. I'm still renting. I've moved again now. I'm in a different house and different location. And this has got office space as well. So rather than, because the business was growing, I didn't want to, it was either rent out another office space as well as renting the house, or get a house that's bigger and then a family can come and visit, and I've got office space. So I've got a bigger house. That's what's happening now. And sense. I'm still long-term rental.
Yeah. I find it interesting that lots of people learn to like flexible work and work from home during COVID, but you took it a stage further and realised it gave you the ability to go to another country and still do what you do, which I think is great. I think 5 years ago it would have been way more challenging than it is now. Would you miss the UK? What are the things that you miss about the UK in terms of being physically here? Obviously not the weather at the moment.
Nothing.
Well.
The things that are different because we're an island. Obviously, you can't get an Amazon delivery the same day. It'll probably take 2 weeks if it comes at all. But it's a much simpler life. You don't need all those things. You're an outdoor. It took me a while. It takes you a while to get your brain out of holiday mode. Because the first 6 months it was just like I was on one big holiday, and it's still strange now because I'm so much involved with everyone in the UK and talking to them on Zooms and things like that, and then I go outside and I've got a mountain and the sunshine and palm trees.
Wow!
And every day I still love that fact. Yeah, I know, and but the remote working it's been the best thing ever. And recently I had a new client who's doing digital lab software for clear aligners and brackets orthodontics. And all of his workers are all remote around the world.
Oh, wow.
Yes, this is a brand new one. I'm just getting interested. I love it. I think it's such a great story.
It's an interesting one, really, isn't it? I hadn't really thought about that thing of the fact of you move to another country, but then you're sort of that first 6 months you're on holiday mode. So I'd imagine the danger is you're like, well, I'll just go in the pool or I'll just do a bit of sunbathing, and then suddenly you're like, oh, flip, I've got work to do as well. You must have to be really organised and disciplined. Otherwise, the danger is you spend 6 months being on holiday and then working late at night because you've realised that you haven't done during the day what you should do. I'd never really thought about that. I say that's quite an interesting one, isn't it? That you've got to get your head in the right space as much as be in the right space.
Oh, the structure you need, the system and structure is important.
You do gradually change. Definitely. Yeah. You do have to be disciplined. This is what a lot of people, they come out here, especially because it's a holiday. It's like a holiday. It's almost like everyone's happy. You can go out every night of the week. You can eat out in all the different restaurants. The sun's shining. The beach is there. And then you forget that you have to do real life as well. And some people, they find that they just end up really overweight or drinking loads, and then they get bored because there's nothing else.
Well, I suppose it's a bit like one of my friends. He had a place in Portugal, and he said, when you're there for a long time, basically you get to know all the local restaurants, not the tourist restaurants, so therefore the prices are cheaper, and he said you know where to buy, and he said the real risk is that you end up going out every night, you'll have a bottle of wine, he said, and he noticed he put on so much weight, he said, because he in his head, even though he'd moved there, he was still as if he was on holiday. And he said you had to really transition to think, oops.
They say it takes about 18 months, and I'm 2 years now, so I'm just over 2 years. And it kicked in. It was probably, I came back in June, and it really felt different. I went up to my old practice and went in there, and it was almost like I could have just put my uniform back on and got back into work. That was weird. But I was in the town, and everything was busy, and people were stressed and pushing and shoving. I thought, I don't like this. I could not wait to come back. And I thought, I know that I'm in the right place.
Yeah. Do you speak Spanish?
I'm doing lessons. I have been. So, but again, unless you're mixing with Spanish all the time, you don't actually get a chance to practice it. So I have to force myself to say things. But I can, when they're talking now, the words aren't just.
You can actually hear.
I'm catching the words, so I know what they're trying to say to me, so I can answer.
It's a completely different way of life, isn't it?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's. I even have siestas now. I know, but I never thought. I don't know whether it's because I've got older or whether it's because I'm in this country. But you have, and then I do work in the evening, so I tend to do a bit of work early in the morning. And then I might go for a swim, have some lunch or something. And then it's siesta time. And then I carry on with work in the evening.
Wow. I imagine everybody in the UK is feeling very jealous of your lifestyle. Just rolling back to
they won't be watching this one.
Just rolling back to the beginning of your career. So obviously you were dental nurse and head nurse and practice manager. And that was like your segue into kind of, marketing. Back then, what did marketing look like for dental practices? Because obviously there's lots of people that are they're like living in the here and now, and it's become very digital. But back in the 90s, what did dental practices do to market themselves?
That sounds so old, doesn't it? Back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s.
I mean, for people like me, this feels like yesterday, but we know it's not.
Yeah, so back in the 90s. Oh man.
Yeah, so that's when we used to put the adverts in the papers, in the local papers, or you might, if you wanted to really spend out, you'd put an advert in on the bus stop. I think you can still that's still used now actually, but and then it was leaflet drops. I remember doing leaflet drops.
The old trifold leaflet drop.
Yeah.
Normally with spelling mistakes. I always remember those.
Yeah. So I remember doing loads of that. Where I thought it was great because it meant I got out of work. I can just go walk around the houses for a few hours. But doing the leaflet drops.
What's quite
Good
interesting
exercise.
is that quite a lot of those analog types of marketing tactics are coming back. Like people now are sending more stuff in the mail because I guess in any cycle you get saturation. So if everybody's doing something, there's so much noise, you just don't get seen. So some of those physical hard copy style marketing tactics still have a place. On the social media side of things, how would you describe the general understanding in kind of UK dentistry of how people use it? Do they use it well? You know, are they good things? Are we still just scratching the surface of what it can be?
I think so. I think people look too far into it as well. I think basically for me, I like to keep things simple. And when I'm talking to different practices, I think they're worrying too much. The target audience is potential clients, customers,
Mm,
patients. They're the normal average people who just are nosy. They like to see you. They want to see behind the scenes. They know you can do the fillings. They know you can they like to see the pictures as well. But they can go to your website and see all that as well. But people are just generally, it's that same analogy if you buy a car. If you have the same car, but why do you go to that person instead of that person? And it's because you like the person and they feel approachable. And for me, as a dental any business actually, I don't think it's just dental. The whole strategy applies to any business. I think you've got to remember that they are normal people. And there's one thing my mum said to me a while ago, because I worked in quite a very up to date practice. And she'd been going to an NHS practice in where I lived,
mm.
and she was quite happy there. But I said, "Well, why don't you just come up to us?" Anyway, when she came up, she just felt completely overwhelmed, and she said, "I just wanted to go back to the other practice." And that's because even I was there, so
Interesting.
that resonated with me on social media. If you're putting all these high class, it depends who you're attracting. I mean, if
Mm.
you're one of these high class dental practices in London and you've got the clientele, but the normal average dental practice, they're normal average people. And you've got to remember that, what you're showing them.
That's a real
And
interesting one,
don't
isn't
have videos too long because people get bored. I don't sit and
it?
listen to a
Mm.
whole 3 minute, 4 minute video on Instagram. I'll listen to the first few
Yeah.
bits and then that's it. So keep it short and sweet. Get the impact out. They want to see your
I think that's a
personality, and
real insight,
that's all
Claire,
it
to
is
be
to it,
honest
I
with you,
think.
because I think so many people post the content that they like and they're interested in without actually taking time to think about the end user and say, who are we posting this for? And you're right, from a patient point of view, it could be very intimidating if they're seeing things that feel they're out of their league, either by price or look or feel or whatever it might be. So that remembering who you're posting for is really important.
Mm. And
You had
I
you
always
said an
say,
interesting thing. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, you said an
go on.
interesting thing that you said patient, customer, your client, customer, patient. And I thought it was quite interesting of, do you use that terminology with the dentist about saying to them, actually, these are customers, or do you not? And if you do, how do they react?
I was the reason I said that then is because it could be any business, not just
Right.
dental. So that's why I said that this strategy can actually apply. I don't limit myself just to dental.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why I put there's obviously you've got, if you're a hairdresser, they're probably called clients, customers in the shops, or and then you've got the patients for the healthcare. So that's why I did the 3 different types.
Right. And do you call them patients with dentists?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
interesting, wasn't
definitely.
it? Because we had a conversation with once, I can't remember, a dentist about what a client, what a customer, and what the patient was, and we were saying, you're trying to generate revenue, so you have to sort of try and think about
Yeah, but I
that's
think
what you want to
that's
do.
yeah, but I think because I've been in dental and I've helped the patients, I think that's what gives me a little bit of an edge to think in that way. You see the patients, you just bring out a spatula, which is nothing, but they see it and they're like, oh. So you've got to think about those little things when you're putting it on social media as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've always taken the view,
Because they
Claire,
don't
that
know what they don't know, do they?
oh no, absolutely. I've always taken the view, Claire, that consistency for me is always more important than stressing about each individual bit of content. I know for
Yes.
dentists, the quality of their work and what they're presenting is really important, but there's sometimes a danger you get in your own way and just don't post things because you critique it to the point where you just don't do it.
Yeah.
What's your view on the debate around quality of what you post against the quantity of what you post? Where would you sit on that?
Definitely, you've got to have good content. If it's rubbish as well, then
Yeah.
people aren't going to watch. Also, you have to be careful for the GDC because they're watching as well. So you have to. The quality has to be good. If you're doing befores and afters, yes, I mean you're going to. All the other dentists are watching as well. So that's where they need to be put in. It needs to be in focus. It needs to be straight and angled. You get these ones that look awful, and I won't post it. If they send me photos like that, I won't post it. I just can't. I can't have my name put for that. So, which is why I say to them, I try to give them advice on how to take the photos as
I
well,
was
because
going
I
to
used
say,
to
you
do the
must have to
clinical
train
photos.
them.
This is why I've called myself not just a social media manager, because obviously I've got all other aspects that I do, but I find that I end up working with the dental practice in other ways. I end up on our marketing meetings. It's not about marketing. They're telling me about things in the practice that's happened, and I end up giving them advice and things like that, because I can't help it. I love it anyway.
Yeah.
But
And with
yes,
your
you need
experience,
to
you can
be
cover it off,
consistent.
can't you?
Exactly. You need to be consistent, and it needs to be good content. But when it comes to videos and things like that, you need to be natural. So don't worry. Just even making a cup of tea and saying I'm ready for the day. Don't go back and look and think, oh, my face looks funny, my hair looks. You need to be presentable. But I do a video and I don't watch it again. Yeah, yeah. I don't ever rewatch it. If you start doing that, you'll never do any.
I suppose that's true, isn't it? You that the dangers. We had a friend who he was a designer on the Eurofighter, and he said the danger is that people analyse and try and perfect and perfect and perfect. He said,
Yeah.
and his phrase, which is a lovely phrase that I use many a times, he said, you just have to break the pencil. he said once you've broken the pencil, he said you can't do it again. He said you can then do another version of it, or you can then do something else. He said, but if you just keep reviewing the same thing, your danger is you never post it because you're never happy with it. There's always something that you can change. And he said, you just have to break the pencil, go with what you've got.
And the reality is, as well,
just
their
remember
timeline
that
moves quite quickly.
for a dental practice.
Yeah.
Exactly, that as well. But so consistency, definitely. You need to be consistent. They need to see you. They need to be seeing your branding colours, or your on Instagram. It's all about how it looks. And if they're going to see you every day on the stories, you can put more on the stories and just have your grid as being just your content, and then put more on the stories if you don't want to have the grid. There's so many different options, and I end up talking to them what's best for them and how they want to go about, and give them my ideas. But I always say to them, are you trying to attract other dentists, or are you trying to attract patients? Because there's a difference.
Yeah.
And if Instagram sees that you're following all these other dentists, it will start pushing dentists. The patients aren't going to see you.
I'll tell you what's interesting. The fact of, or yet more interesting, is because you work in different sectors, not just dentistry, I'd imagine you can then bring some otherworld experience into dentistry that says, well, hang on a minute, this has worked well in so-and-so, so why don't we give it a go in dentistry and stuff like that. I think that's because it's a brilliant opportunity.
It's
the
very
danger
powerful.
is if you're always in dental, the answer is you're going to miss out on all these other things, aren't you?
Definitely. And it's about people at the end of the day, and that's what I've learned over the 30 years. Patience, working with a big team, and it's all about the people. And you're, in a way, using social media, you're brainwashing people. You're seeing them constantly, and then that's it. I'm being blunt, but that's what it is. It's a form of brainwashing.
Well, we said, what's that stat, Andy? I can't remember. Is it something like you have to see something 27 or 32 times before you even register it, because the fact of the content on what we're faced with, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, the news or whatever, that you need it at least that number of times, if only for you to just go, oh, I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, well, that's the same. See, a vital part of it is engagement. So engagement, organic engagement, which is what we do. So dentists and dental practices haven't got time to sit there going and finding their target areas. They might get someone in-house doing the posts for them, that's fine, but someone still needs to be on there commenting and liking. And what happens is, I'm sure you get it, that someone keeps liking all your posts or making comments, and in the end you go, who are they? And you go and look, and then you think, oh, right, so they do this, they do that. You look at their website, and it goes on from there. And that's basically, it's that simple.
But you have to do it, don't you? That's the
I think it's back to that thing about the consistency.
For me, the key thing is that you can't leave it to someone. Yeah.
Isn't it? It's
and that's why all the marketing has gone a bit mad on it. Yeah. And see, the beauty is that I can, if they need me to answer their direct messages, or I can talk to the patients. So it depends on what I've got going on with the practice or whoever it is I'm working with. Some of them, I direct them straight to their dashboard or their, one of their what's it called? SRM. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
The CRM.
CRM, that's it. My brain's gone.
I tell you what's
my
fascinating.
brain's going too quickly is what I want to say.
I tell you what's fascinating. In a way, it's just an extension. Do you remember in the old days, probably in the 90s, back in the 90s, people would produce leaflets that they would then send out, or brochures, and then clients would ring, and then no one would answer the phone. And it's almost exactly what you're saying, is that, you're creating this sort of interest, and then someone sends you a message and everyone ignores it. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, that's happening now, but for a different reason. It's because the practices are too busy.
Yeah.
They're absolutely busy, which comes into the treatment coordinator role, which you see everywhere. You see all the courses everywhere, and it's a really big asset at the moment, is a treatment coordinator. But what's happening is where everyone's short-staffed, the treatment coordinator is normally a nurse, not always, or a practice manager, or someone ends up doing other jobs, so they don't get the treatment coordinating done. Which is why I now do mentoring. I do a course. I still cover all the modules that other courses do, but I do it more as a mentoring. So I go through something and then we apply it to the practice. They go back and they work out how it works in their practice, because they might just be doing 4 hours of treatment coordinating every day. Whereas these courses, not all of them, I mean, they're brilliant. So I'm not moaning about other courses. But I like to be part of it. I like to get in the practice and help them and support them, because the practice manager's busy, the principal's busy, the reception are busy, and sometimes they're just left to get on with it, and they don't know what they're doing. So, and they might just want to talk to someone, and what would you have done in this situation? This is what I did. How could I change it? So that's why I do that, and I don't widely broadcast it. I tend to do one-to-one, and it's for new treatment coordinators, really. But it's such a vital part, because everyone else is so busy in the practice.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? No one's sitting around twiddling their thumbs and saying, oh, what should I do today? And I think probably for me, the social media one, and anyone who's listening, is that the risk I can imagine is someone says, hey, Julie, you're young, so therefore you can do our social media. You understand Instagram, and just because it's a young person who knows Instagram is not really what you want, because they don't have the skills and understanding that it's a marketing tool. But I imagine you probably see that quite a lot, do you? Where people say, so we've given it to the 19-year-old Julie, but she's not been very successful. Well, this is a surprise. No.
Exactly. Well, I met up with one. I'd been referred to someone, a dentist, and when I came on, she said, "Oh, you're older than I thought."
Oh,
But she
really?
liked it. She saw it as a positive. She
Mm.
thought that was easier to work with than someone who's younger saying, I can do this and I can do that. And they can, it's not. But because I had the background as well,
Yeah.
she liked it and she found that more approachable and the communication
It's very
was,
funny how
for
we
her, was
stereotype
better.
people, isn't it? How we stereotype people into categories where we see somebody of a certain
Mm.
age. Yet people probably wouldn't have realised that. So you said you were back on Instagram, 12, 13 years ago. That was at the beginning. That literally was when it started. So
Yes.
you've seen the evolution of what works, what doesn't work, how to build followings, the difference in content. Whereas I suppose young people today, all they see is what's been posted in the last 6 months, a year, 2 years, how long they've been using it. And we need to represent what's happening now, but to have that history of how it's evolved is really powerful and useful.
Mm.
Yeah, and they've all got their different uses. So for me, I find that Facebook is good to get in the groups, get in with, find out what's going on. Still patients, it's still worth posting on there. You still get some of the older patients possibly using Facebook. And then Instagram's visually, everyone says, what's your Instagram? Who are you on Instagram? And they immediately, that's your go-to now. You find a business, you look it up on Instagram. Most people do. And that's, you're missing out. It's almost such a cheap way of marketing compared to what you could be doing and wasting lots of money. And then LinkedIn is completely different again. This is where you want to do your networking with all the dentists and the dental world. And if you've got courses, you need to be on LinkedIn. That's where it should be. LinkedIn and Instagram, being Facebook, going to the groups so that you're getting to know in that way. And that's my basics, really.
Do you do anything on TikTok, or is that not really?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Is that
Again,
becoming bigger? Is that becoming a bigger thing?
It's huge. It's huge. It's just as big as Instagram, I believe. And you'll find all the dental practices, all the, everyone's on TikTok. I've started going on it recently, but I refuse to do any of those videos. I don't do any of those trends, and I don't believe you have to do them. I really don't, because I've been experimenting myself. Yeah, no, I can't do it. I just can't. I think it's good to have a bit of fun, play around, but I don't think you need to be doing every single one. And then if you repost that on Instagram won't push it out because you haven't used them. So people are making the mistake.
Right. Okay.
Instagram want you to use their reels. They want you to use all their gimmicks. They don't want you to repost TikToks on there.
I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's a commercial platform. Ultimately, why would you use someone else's format? Yeah, that's right.
So, Claire, if there was a dentist listening to this today, what is the hero platform that somebody should? If a dentist listens to this and they're like, "Well, I don't really do social media, but I should start." What's the one place they most absolutely have to appear on?
Instagram.
Right.
Definitely Instagram. It's like the yellow pages nowadays.
Oh, yellow pages. Look at that.
Yeah,
Thompson Local.
I told you I'm old school.
Oh, the old yellow pages. Yell.
Yeah.
Yell was there, wasn't it? Yell.com.
That's
Thompson,
it. Yeah.
The Thompson Local. I remember them all.
That's it. Yeah. So you know, people look on Instagram and obviously they Google people, and then they might even Google the website and then go to their Instagram because they want to see the people.
Right. Yeah.
They want to see who you are.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
I better learn how to use those filters then.
Yeah, but then they're going to go in and get a shock when they come and see you in the practice.
It's a bit like online dating, I'd imagine. Some of the stories we hear on that are fantastic. This is a picture of my friend.
The thing is as well is that people don't like it and they don't want to be. I struggle getting content from practices because obviously they're really, really busy for a start. And people don't want to be filmed. I've got one practice who says, right, once a month, put your makeup on, do your hair. We're going to be taking some pictures. So they know in advance. I don't know how many people go off sick that day, but
yeah, that's interesting.
but I
isn't
do
it?
struggle with getting. Like I said, look, there's ways of getting around this. You don't have to actually see the people. You can take pictures from above. Like you can be doing some with your hands. You don't actually have to be seeing the people. There are ways around it. This is where Oliver comes in as well. So I'm going to be teaming up with Oliver. So because I can't go into practices because a lot of them say to me, can you come into practice and take some photos, which I would love to do, but obviously I'm not over there. So now I've got Oliver to be able to go into the practices, and I've got someone who can do that for me that I can trust.
Wow. I'll tell you the interesting thing on that, though, isn't it? That you sort of imagine being an old bloke, and whenever you're out, everyone is taking a selfie of themselves. You somehow think, well, hang on a minute, there's all these nurses and receptionists and dentists who are really happy to take a selfie at the drop of a hat. But then as soon as you ask them to take a picture in the practice, oh, no. It's a real interesting juxtaposition.
Somehow it's different. Somehow it's different.
You can't go anywhere without someone doing this.
Yeah.
Mad.
It's true. That's what I say. So I find out who in the practice are there ever associates that are consistently on social media, because they're the person who will be the one who will be able to go and take the photos or push for content.
Wow.
But sometimes you just don't get anyone. There's such a little practice that have never done it before, and it's like you have to nurture them and get them to do it. And I write lists out and say, right, can you get me this? Can you get me that? And you have to like build it up slowly. And again, it's not something that happens overnight. You have to give, when you're working with people, it takes time, at least three to 6 months before you can even start seeing results. I think people think, oh, you're going to hire someone and do their social media, and then suddenly all these messages are going to come through. It doesn't work like that. It's building it up and building it up.
It takes time. It does take time.
Well,
where does your positivity come from, Claire? Because in our interactions, you are so full of energy and passion for what you do, and your positivity. Have you always been like this, or is it kind of something that's developed over time?
I think I've learned more as I've got older. I think you realise that you've got to enjoy life and be positive about it and not see the negative. And I think out here as well, it feeds it. I think as well. It's not, but I've always had that the glass half full rather than empty. Obviously, we've all had times in our lives where it drops. We've all been like that, and I was at that stage. I think at the end, when I was in the UK, I was at that point where something had to change because I was just exhausted. And as I said, I think it's really that positivity I've always had has really kicked in since I've come out here.
Brilliant.
Good. So maybe it's the sunshine.
Sunshine.
I was going to say,
lovely food, having a siesta.
I know.
Whatever it is, it appears to be working well for you, Claire, which is great. If you could go back, is there one decision you change in your life?
Well, they say the work-life balance, don't they? No, I believe in fate. I think that things all happen for a reason. Like I said right at the beginning about the sliding doors effect.
Yeah.
I think you have to get through these times to get to where you are. I'm one of those people who believe I wouldn't change anything.
Good. We always finish up with our guests in the same way. We always ask the same two questions just for a bit of consistency. So if you could be the fly on the wall in a situation, where would you like to be? When would that be? Who would you be with?
See, I was thinking about this, and there's so many different scenarios you can think of, but I think at this present time at the moment it's quite boring actually. I would like to be, when I get these new practices and their social media and then they're trying to film their videos, I love watching the outtakes. I like them to send me the outtakes because that makes the best post. So for me, I like to be on a fly on a wall when they're actually doing that because I think that'd be funny to watch.
I bet there's
Everyone loves
gallons
an
of
outtake.
content that no one's ever seen because people were embarrassed about it. But I bet there's some real gold in there of some
Exactly.
sort or other. And our follow-up question is,
And
if you could,
they won't let you use it.
no.
Use
And if you could meet somebody, who would you like to meet if you were given the opportunity?
Living or dead, fact or fictional. So there's a wide choice for people.
Again, this is it's going to be work related. I was thinking about this as well. For me, at this present time, you asked me that question. I've been working remotely now for 2 years, and I've never met any of you.
Yeah.
So I would actually I'm thinking about going to one of the dental shows this year and just meeting everyone that I've been talking to, because I've not seen anyone, not one person.
I'm just checking flights to Lanzarote so we can all come out.
Yeah. Well, I said that I think I could actually hold a conference out here and everyone would come out, because I've got loads of people who are planning on coming out. Yeah.
Now that sounds like a good idea. I like that one.
Yeah.
A bit of sunshine,
You
a bit of
Because I
windy
know some of
sun.
the
Local rates. I say you get local rates, Claire. Local
Yeah.
rates, local meals.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be good? I was thinking about doing it for my big birthday in November. I thought I could just hold there'll be people who want to do the speeches and these people I know now.
Yeah.
If I said, can you organise this? I'll do it this end. I think people would jump at it.
I mean, in all seriousness, that's not a bad idea. To do a dental course where you could bring over a number of people because you will know the places. Watch this space, everybody.
I know.
The Frisby show.
Yeah, definitely. I've been saying it for a long time because everyone keeps saying I'm coming out, and I've had quite a few people. I've had one person actually come out so far, and the rest all coming out. And also, I've had people now. I'm getting a little community of dental people out here. So there's a dentist who actually bought an apartment in a little resort near me. Now we're having Christmas Day together. She met on Facebook. It's all thank you to social media. She's been out here a few times with her husband now, and I've met up with them. There's another Dentaqua, I don't know if you've heard of them. He comes out and sees me here because I do some work with them. And the latest one is a hygienist who works remotely, giving advice and things like that. And her family lived in the house that was where I used to live. So she's probably coming out at Christmas as well. So I'm getting my own little dental community out here.
You are.
I think people genuinely like to travel around. There's various courses and events around Europe that people are always keen to go to. So I don't think it's a ridiculous idea that there might be an opportunity.
Yeah. This is my plan.
Sounds like a good idea, actually. Flights out
book
season.
your flights for November.
Exactly. It's been a real joy, Claire. I think your experience and knowledge in an area that everybody kind of knows about, but doesn't necessarily think through kind of exactly how they use it and how to maximize the output from it. So I think it's been fascinating. And I think the way you've just kind of embraced kind of COVID and you've re-engineered your life and your business to suit you, I think is a great lesson for people as well, because just because you do something one way doesn't mean it always has to be that way. So it's been fabulous. Really appreciate the time with you.
Yeah, that's been brilliant. It's lovely. Really nice to meet you. So we've all had interactions on various bits and pieces, but it's nice to say hello and thank you. And hopefully people will get learn some stuff. I think, because I think it's one of those things that's seen as really easy, but isn't quite as easy as it is. People, do you know what I mean? They need to actually think about what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. That's the final thing I think that people, but don't make it too complicated. That's the thing. Just keep it simple.
No, brilliant,
lovely. Cheers, Claire. Really appreciate your time
today. Thank you for having me.
We'll leave you to get back to the swimming pool.
You go after yourself now.
Yeah, I need a swim.
Lovely. Cheers, Claire. Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.